I received an email from Brad, and he wanted to know what can he do to ensure that his body is learning to burn stored body fat for fuel versus stored sugar. This came off of a conversation that I had on a public podcast where I mentioned most athletes teach themselves to become very dependent on stored sugar, known as glycogen. You store glycogen in both your liver and your muscles. However, there's a limited amount of energy that your body can store. For the average individual, they'll say it's between 60 and maybe 80 minutes of stored sugar that you have in your body. The higher the intensity that you train, the quicker you deplete those gas tanks. But when we look at the availability of energy that comes from stored fat, there's all kinds of studies that are out there, but there is a plethora of energy that is stored in the body as soon as we can teach our body to use stored fat as a primary fuel source. And literally, you can train the body to do so. We have a test called the MAF test. It's designed around a gentleman by the name of Dr. Phil Maffetone, and he came up with this idea of assessing maximum aerobic function. So what we do and what we'd recommend that you do is go to the description box below this video right here, go to my resource page and download the heart rate spreadsheet. There's also some protocols on the resource page on how to extrapolate your max heart rate for each discipline of training and racing that you do. Once you plug in your max heart rate, your 4-week moving average of your resting heart rate, and you plug that into the spreadsheet, you're going to get heart rate ranges zones 1 through 5. What we would encourage you to do, and I'm just going to use running as a simple example, plug in your max, plug in your 4-week resting heart rate average, look at what zone 2 is on this spreadsheet. Take a 10 beat range. I'm going to use very loose numbers. Let's say your zone 2 is 130 to 140. What you're going to do now is you're going to go run 3 miles continuously, never going above 140 and never going below 130. Capture your pace at every 1 mile mark. Go about your training for 6 or 8 weeks, come back and do the exact same test. Try to keep the conditions and variables as constant as possible and see if you don't run faster at that same heart rate range. This is how we're able to determine, did your maximum aerobic function improve? That's from a physical standpoint. If we come back to Ben's original question, how do I teach my body to burn more stored body fat? Train more at a lower heart rate. I don't want that to come across as condescending or disrespectful. If every time you work out, you take your heart rate into zone 3, 4, and 5, if you've followed me for any period of time, look at the screen here. This is called the energy matrix. And what it's illustrating is that as you take the heart rate higher and higher, you're burning a larger percentage of stored sugar, glycogen, and less stored fat. So when you're trying to train yourself to leverage stored body fat for fuel, you have to literally train more time, more duration at an aerobic level. The most important component is when we're looking to train aerobically, you're now looking at an established glass ceiling. You don't want to go into zone 3 because you're predominantly burning sugar at that point in time, stored glycogen. So great question from Ben. If you want to teach yourself to leverage stored body fat for fuel, you need to train specifically. You need to know what your glass ceiling, what your top number is in zone 2 and not go above it, and then test yourself every 6 to 8 weeks. That's the quickest way to teach yourself and for you to build confidence that the idea that training aerobically has a multitude of benefits. And in this case, you'll be able to go faster at the same heart rate. So great question. I hope that clarifies it, Ben. If not, as always, send us an email. And if you happen to have an email, I want you to do the same thing. Send it to contact@coachrobb.com. We're posting a new video every morning here on the Coach Robb Beams YouTube channel. We want to say thank you for watching this video, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.